Dobar dan. That means good day. It's June 29th. TalkCast PDX, talkcastpdx.com on the web. Name of the show is The Bogdanich Perspective. I'm your host, Paul Bogdanich, and welcome. Title of today's show is The Bottom End. Hope that becomes clear as I go along. I'm not in my collared shirt today. It's been like I don't know. I think yesterday they said something above 112 degrees, and this is the Pacific Northwest. It does not historically get that hot here. There's University of Maine has a site called Climate Reanalyzer. That's climatereanalyzer.com. And it's a global view with heat maps. And if you go to the 2-meter temperature anomaly thing on the website, it shows you temperatures all around the Earth. And the Earth right now is only about 0.2 degrees above normal, but the Pacific Northwest, in basically from southern part of Oregon all the way up into the northern part of British Columbia, is the hottest place on Earth. It's got this big red blob over it on the 2-meter temperature anomaly. And I've been watching that site for years. And it seems like there's always one spot that's really hot. And I've seen it over Kazakhstan and Pakistan and China and the Middle East. And I remember looking at that on the web and thinking those guys must be hating it, right? And it's our turn, and we're hating it. Pretty amazing. 115. It's like Phoenix. Anyway. One other distraction. The UFO report came out, and I was expecting the reactions, and I saw one. What was the guy's name? He was John Ratcliffe, and he was the former director of national intelligence, and he went on one of the TV shows. And he said, and I quote, There are technologies that we don't have, and frankly, that we are not capable of defending against. It's an issue of national security. And that kind of, I find that comical. If you can get a car-size object, something about the size of an automobile or the mass of an automobile, it doesn't really matter what size it is, but the mass of an automobile that's capable of maneuvering on its own power once it gets here to the Earth from another star, right? It's a technological no contest. It would be like a modern army with modern weapons showing up to introduce themselves to the Roman legions. I mean, it doesn't matter how strong or valorous or brave or whatever you are. It's just a technological no contest. And so my advice, if you ever run into an alien, would be give them some chocolate or some coffee or maybe some licorice, or maybe a distilled spirit or something else that they might not have, and say hello, be nice, because that's about the only hope. Anyway, market was up pretty big last week, as you noticed. I think it was 2.275%. In looking for a general pattern, that was really easy to find. Every stock was up. I mean, everything. We have those portfolios that we put together, and if you add them all together, they track 54 stocks, right? And of the 54 stocks, you had the biggest one was Nike. Okay, Nike came out with a press release, and they said, what's good for China is what's good for Nike. Nike is part of China, like that. And that's what they said. And their stock is up 20% in response to that. Below them, you have 4 different companies that were up in between 7 and 8%. Those were Tesla, Bank America, ConocoPhillips, and Exxon. All right, so 2 energies, a bank, and Tesla, which is a story stock. Then you had 2 other companies that were up in between 5 and 6%. Those were S&P Global. It's an information concern, and Netflix. Then you had 5 companies that were up in between 4 and 5%, and those were Bank America, Target, JP Morgan, Chevron, the other oil company, and United Health. Then you had 8 companies that were up in between 3 and 4%, okay, and those were United Parcel Service, Costco, KMI, which is Kinder Morgan, Facebook, Walt Disney, MasterCard, Lowe's, Verizon, and Visa, excuse me. And those were all up in between 3 and 4%. And then in between 2 and 3%, you had 13 companies: Honeywell, Walmart, Adobe, PayPal, NVIDIA, Procter & Gamble, Sherwin-Williams, Abbott Labs, Microsoft, Thermo Fisher, Apple, Prologis, and Google. And then you had 14 companies that were up in between 1 and 2%. And I won't read them, but they're just a bunch of companies. That's just about what the market made. Then you only had 7 losers, of which 6 of them. Well, let's look at this. You had 1, 2, 3. There's only 7. Excuse my language. And 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were down less than 0.5%. One was down 1.25%. That was AT&T. Intel was down 1.36. Air Products and Chemicals down 1.42. And the biggest loser of pretty much any of the large stocks was Amazon, which is another story stock. So it just depends how your story is that week. But what happened this week is every stock went up. Oh, the sectors. If we just look at it by sector, excuse me. All right. So we have communication services up 3%, consumer discretionary up 1.5%, consumer staples up 2%, energy up 6%, finance up 4.5%, healthcare up 2.5%, industrials up 4%, internet technology up 2.5%. Worst performing, well, not the worst performing, but materials is up 0.6%. Real estate was up 1.25%, and utilities were up about 0.3%. So, with the exception of materials and utilities, everybody was way up. So pretty much every stock. It's kind of like the house that I mentioned in a prior episode. You have a house, a home, and it's worth $100,000, and then next week it's worth $120,000, and you didn't put a new kitchen in it, you didn't paint it, you didn't put a new roof on it, you didn't landscape it, you didn't do anything to it. It's just worth more. And when that happens in the market, it's what's called multiple inflation. Just every stock goes up, and that's what we had last week. As to why that happened, the after statements from the Fed and some of the written releases and so on confirmed that the Fed is going to be continuing to print in between $120 and $180 billion a month. And that will be expended predominantly into federal bonds to fund the government debt and mortgage-backed securities. So the way the market interprets that is that the Fed is managing to what's called household wealth. When they do the GDP, they say household wealth, not wages or income, but household wealth increased. And the largest component of household wealth for most people is the price of their home and their retirement savings. And the Fed appears to be set to continue to inflate those two things. The next time they meet is in August. So it probably, it should go on that long, one would think. So if I was anybody else, or not anybody else, but most people else, I guess, I'd go with the flow. I'd take off a lot of these calls and put positions that I talked about last week, and I'd just go with the flow until, call it, earnings season, and then buy selective hedges. But I'd lighten up quite a bit and just go. But I'm constitutionally incapable of doing that, and I figured I would tell a couple stories that indicate why. I've been doing this a long time. And back during the dot-com boom, I was at a birthday party at a house. And one of these people who knew me wanted me to talk to the hostess of this party about the stock market because she worked at one of these high-tech companies and she had a lot of stock and bonuses and this and that. And I said, I'd rather not. I'm not a broker or a licensed, financial advisor, and I'd rather not. And she kind of pushed me, and she said, okay. So I talked to this woman, And I was just being real nice about it. Hi, how are you? And it was her home. And I said, is the home paid for? And she says, no, there's like 300,000 mortgage. And I says, car paid for? And she says, no, I owe like half the value. And I said, that's a real nice painting on the fireplace. God, did you buy that? And she says that was her mother's, and her mother has a, extensive art collection. So basically, a good income, like I say, working at a tech company. And I said, well, what's your stock position in the market? And she was all invested in these work shares. And she said, what do you think? And I said, to be honest, I would sell enough of it to pay off the mortgage on the car, pay off the house, and put $100,000 in the bank, and then, keep the rest. And she looked at me and she goes, you don't understand high technology. And she turned on her heel and left. Within 6-9 months after that, her high technology stock, which was trading at 20, was down at 3 and never did recover. It's trading at 5 today, 20, 30 years later. And that's the first time. During the real estate boom, which after the stock market bubble collapsed in 2000, March of 2000, the Fed lowered the interest rates. That caused the real estate speculation. And it was 2004, 2005, or sometime in the early 2000s. We were invited to a party, and it was on this guy's home, and he had part of the lawn cut down and had a croquet set up, and just real nice, big wraparound deck with hors d'oeuvres and drinks and this and that. And he was a realtor. And a lot of the, I think he was a commercial mortgage broker, but in the real estate industry. And a lot of people there were realtors or real estate investors and this and that. And I was just talking to some of them and making nice and introducing and that kind of thing. And I saw my wife talking to 3 couples. So she was talking to 6 people, 3 men, 3 women. And I walk over, and to say hello to my wife, and she sees me and she comes over and she introduces me and she goes, this is my husband, Paul. He thinks that real estate prices are going to go down. And then she turned around and left, right? And all these guys were either heavily invested or in the real estate business or anything. So they started to get on my case about why I thought that. This was when the National Association of Realtors was saying buy now or be priced out forever, and all that kind of thing. And I said, the rental market, nobody can pay these rents. It's like a food chain. If you're not living in the home as your home and it's an investment property, you have to have lessees or renters, and the bottom can't afford it. The prices are getting too high. And I said, eventually, real estate prices are going to have to reflect that reality. That wasn't received by them real well. It was true, of course, but the same thing's true today. In managing to household wealth, and they've been doing this for years. I used to complain when I was watching, and they would come out and they would say inflation was 1%. And I would always note that the inflation in house prices was in between 3 and 4%, and healthcare was always in between above 2, typically less than 3.5% a year. And those 2 items, irrespective of food, gasoline, anything else, were always going up, up, up. And this last 2 years, especially during the pandemic, for no good reason, house prices gone up 10, 11% per year. So when this pandemic is over and they expect wage workers at the bottom to start paying these rents, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they realize that it's not going to happen. I think it's going to catch them totally by surprise. I don't think it's going to be enough to wreck the stock market because people are pretty resistant. And we have a Fed that's helping it along, which is different than in the old days. But sooner or later, again, a number of shows ago, I talked about what was called exogenous wealth. And people didn't understand the term, so I haven't been talking about it since. But it means any kind of wealth or source of money that is not based on productivity of people. Okay, could be oil reserves. In the case of the Arabian Peninsula, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Iran, Iraq, Libya, places like that have tremendous exogenous wealth in Venezuela. In terms of oil, the Norwegian countries, same deal. All right, they have exogenous wealth in the form of oil. In the subtropics of Africa, in the southern hemisphere, they have tremendous exogenous wealth in the form of minerals, diamonds, platinum, gold, so on. So, but one of the problems is if you, with the exception of the Norwegian countries, if you look at these these countries with tremendous amounts of exogenous wealth, what you find is that nearly all of them are either monarchies or dictatorships. And the reason for that is kind of simple. It's because they have exogenous wealth and the productivity of the citizens doesn't matter. They can either work or they can not work. They can either eat well or starve. It doesn't matter. Just as long as those oil wells keep pumping or they're fed well enough to go into the mines, they don't matter. And in principle, in theory, democracy and capitalism, their only virtue over these other systems, apart from being representative, in the case of a democracy, is that it gives the rulers an incentive to make sure that the population is productive, because that's how they get their taxes. Okay. But we created it. Well, we didn't create it. The British did it. The Spanish did it. The Portuguese did it. The Romans did it. Virtually every empire in history does it. But we created exogenous wealth through the money. It doesn't matter to our politicians how much they get in taxes because they just print it. $120 to $180 billion a month. All right, currently. And they just they become further and further disconnected, and then sooner or later somebody comes in and says the peasants have no bread. But the point is, I'm fairly committed to spending the money and keeping these hedges on these positions. I don't trust it. I just don't. So let's look at the portfolios. As you remember, we created 4. We have the top 30 stocks, populate 2 of them. Top 30 capitalization weighted and top 30 equal weighted. And then to get rid of the sector concentration, top 3 every sector, 11 sectors, 3 stocks a sector, 33 stocks. And then my large liquid leaders portfolio, which started with 24 stocks. I sold 3, now has 21. And then I did put and call instruments on the rest to get some downside protection. All these others are just riding with whatever the stocks are, no hedging instruments, whatever. And the market was up 2.75%. So if you had a portfolio with roughly $100,000 in it, you would have expected your portfolio value to come up $2,750, right? Okay. Top 30 cap weight, which is a proxy for the largest companies in the S&P. The top 30 companies are more than 50% of the value of the S&P. So if you cap weight these, that's pretty much a proxy for just the largest capitalization stocks in the S&P. That one was up 2.2% instead of 2.75, so it gained $2,220 instead of $2,750. Top 30 equal weight, which is the same stocks, except for you don't accentuate the really big ones. You just equal weight the investments among all 30. That one was up $3,078, which is 3.08% instead of your $2,750, and that was primarily due to Nike. I don't know how they say Nike in Chinese, but I guess, you're going to have to change that out. But that the difference in that outperformance was primarily because instead of Nike is the 30th, or was, I haven't looked at it lately, but when we bought these portfolios, it was the number 30 rank. So it barely made the list. So the number of shares that you pick up in Nike in these portfolios is much larger than if you cap weight it, right? And so that's how come that portfolio did so well. And then the top 3 by sector, that one came up $2,530 instead of $2,750. And our portfolio, the large liquid leaders, remember all these hedges and everything else, without the effect of the hedges came up 2.4%. But we lost some money on the paying for the hedge protection. And so if you account for the hedge protection, we only gained $1,700. Or 1.98%. If we look at the stocks in particular, just to spend a minute, in the top 3 by sector, top 30 cap weight, excuse me. One loser, and these were cap weighted, so we had, if the stock is large capitalization, we had to own a lot of shares. But you had one loser, and that was Amazon, and that was only because of the cap weighting, and that subtracted $250 from the portfolio. Only one loser. 9 winners. Tesla gained 291. Apple was up 257. Microsoft was up 252. Facebook was up 199. Google was up 192. Bank America up 151. JP Morgan up 116. Exxon up 115. And Nike up 104. And that was in the top 30 cap weight. In the top 30 equal weight, the number one stock is, of course, Nike, because we put as much money to it as we did Apple or Microsoft or the other huge capitalization stocks. For this portfolio, it gained $750, right? Behind it was ExxonMobil, 256, Tesla, 243, Bank America, 236, Netflix, 158, and then in between 150 and 100, you had United Health, Facebook, JP Morgan, MasterCard, Walt Disney, and Visa. No losers above $100. Not a single stock. The largest subtraction in this portfolio was Amazon at $86. So no losers. Top 3 by sector, which is all 11 sectors in the S&P, 3 stocks per sector. No losers above $100. Only 2 losers. Read the 2. Okay, in absolute dollars. Air Products and Chemicals lost $46. Amazon lost $85, and that's it. Okay, and this portfolio is made up of the top 3 capitalization stocks by sector out of all 11 sectors of the S&P. And this is what I'm saying. Everything went up. Every sector, all the large stocks in every sector went up. 2 losers, and they were very, very minor. $46 and $85 against 10 winners. ConocoPhillips up 242, ExxonMobil up 230, Bank America up 216, Tesla up 194, UPS up 133, Bank America up 132, United Healthcare up 125, Chevron up 124, Facebook up 117, and JP Morgan up 116. So heavy on banking and energy. But with Tesla and UPS and Boeing and United Health and Facebook thrown in there. And large liquid leaders without the effect of the hedges had no losers above $100, three losers below $100, Air Products and Chemicals subtracting 50, Comcast subtracting 23, and Philip Morris subtracting 21. 9 winners. There's only 20 stocks in this portfolio. We started with 24, but we sold 4, so we're only carrying 20 active stocks. But so I had 21 up, 3 down. ExxonMobil added 320. S&P Global added 238. Target added 200. JP Morgan 156. Kinder Morgan 159, Facebook 152, Costco 150, Visa 131, and Honeywell 112. And that's without the effect of the hedges. Now, if you'll remember, because of my skittishness, I bought downside positions. And pretty much every stock. But if you look at it in weekly terms, Honeywell, for example, Honeywell stock went up $112 a share, but our hedges, the loss on the price of the hedging instruments, cost us $73 of that. If you look at, what's a good one here? ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil was up $320, but our hedges in ExxonMobil only cost us $11 because when we bought those, we received a premium. But they'll cost us more if we manage to hold them through next week. But anyway, if you add them all up, the biggest differential was in Microsoft. Microsoft stock went up for our portfolio $89, and we subtracted $83.60. in Hedges. And the reason for that is we bought this call position on Microsoft in July 16th. So it was aged. And that's what happens to these things as they get older. They get closer to the trading value. And if you keep holding them, you lose proportionately more and more if the market goes up and you're hedged on it going down. But like I said, for the reasons I already mentioned, I'm absolutely committed to maintaining some downside protection, so I'll pay the money. I have a lot of these that expire on July 16th, not a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8 of them, I guess. Yeah, 8 that expire on July 16th. It's whatever it is, June 29th. So those have to be rolled over. I'm going to do that sometime during the week. These are calls, so they're best rolled over on a down day. So I'm going to look for that. Doesn't have to be closing price, just has to be an intraday low. And so sometime during the week, I'll be rolling at least 7 of these over. Probably, given the change in the Fed language and the admission of what they're going to do. I guess it was... They're taking a lot of heat for it, by the way, but the admission of what they're going to do, at least for the next 3 months. I'm going to look very carefully at just going to the put options on these stocks instead of the calls, but I may renew the calls. If I renew the calls, the minimum strike date would be November 17th, October 15th, or whatever they are, November 19th, or the December 12th, or the January 21st would be preferable. But it depends on how much premium they want me to pay. But anyway, I'll be rolling these over and try and reduce the amount that it costs me every month. This month, or this period, out of 100 and whatever it was, $2,000, call it, in gains, it cost us $400. That's only because a bunch of these puts and calls had premium in them, and so the premium was absorbed. If I let these age, they're going to be like Microsoft, where they're going to start to cost me 70, 80, 90% of the gain. So like I said, I'm going to close a bunch of them out, and we'll see how much that costs and how much it costs me to put the new positions on, and I'll go over that next week. But I'm not going naked, not doing it. Too old. Already been there, done that. Go to sleep with, have a portfolio worth 100,000, wake up and it's worth 80, or less. Just done it before, not going to do it again. So, let's see how it goes. This has been the Bogdanich Perspective. I'm your host, Paul Bogdanich. You can find us on the web. Oh, yes. If you have questions or comments, please email me those. Paul@stockbetor.com. That's Paul@stockbetor, BETTOR.com. And like I say, the name of the show is the Bogdanich Perspective. Thanks for joining. Join me again next Tuesday, and do widzenia. And that means goodbye.